Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Nintendo Switch. Obviously Nintendo's new home hybrid console. Now I already did an unboxing of this thing. I actually did a live unboxing so you guys could all see my absolute first impressions and all that stuff. And that was actually a lot of fun. But now I've had some time to actually use it and get used to it and all that stuff, and I wanted to talk about specifically the hardware, things I like, dislike, you know, things I hope they improve, etc., etc. I'm thinking I'll do like a predictions video and all that kind of stuff later, so that won't really be discussed in this. But so for now, let's just focus specifically on the hardware of the Nintendo Switch. As mentioned, it is Nintendo's new hybrid home console. It is basically the first hybrid home console. No one's ever really done this before. I know people will bring up things like the Sega Nomad or the Neo Geo X. I would not count those because they're both laughably bad comparisons. The Sega Nomad was not the way Sega intended you to play the Genesis. The Genesis came out as a home console. Years later, they thought, oh, you've already got all those Genesis games. What if we just do a portable version so you can just play it as a portable, since the Game Gear didn't really work out. That was kind of that plan. And Neo Geo X, terrible, terrible comparison. It's a clone console made not by SNK. It was licensed by them and then sued, and whatever, that's a different story. And ultimately, it was just a piece of shit anyway. And it was released years after the Neo Geo AES was released. So Nintendo is really the first guys to do a true hybrid home console. And essentially what that means is you can use it as a console where you hook it up to your television and use it conventionally, as I would enjoy, or you can use it as a portable game console, portable device, if you will, and play it that way. The Switch gives you actually a lot of options on how to play it. So I'm going to show you first everything that came in the box and kind of talk a little bit about it. When you get it, this is the Switch. This tiny little thing is the Nintendo Switch. This is the console. This is the brain. This is everything right here, minus the controller capabilities. It's essentially a very small little screen. Like, this is the Google Pixel XL for those who possibly have one. This is a comparison of it. Now this even has a case on it and everything, but it gives you a sense of the size. It's not that big, which is kind of the point. Now, you can play it any number of ways. It comes with these two little controllers called Joy-Cons. I'm sure you guys know a lot of this stuff, but in case you don't, you can use these as two separate controllers if you want. Depending on the game, you would hold it kind of like this, and you have like little triggers there, and you can play it this way. It also comes with these Joy-Con straps that you can like connect onto the side, and you know, strap it on your wrist in case you want to flick it around and do what I would call Wii shit. I don't really use those. But once they're connected, it does actually give you a little bit more grip and stuff. These things are really hard to remove. There's even guides online to show you how to do it properly. Alternatively, again, going back to the Joy-Cons, you can play them holding them this way together, where you just kind of play them like a controller without any sort of connection piece, and you can just look at the screen and have it up on its kickstand like this, setting it up like that. It's a very good kickstand, as you can see. That's one of the flaws of this thing, is that it really should have had two kickstands. But yeah, you can set it up on the kickstand and then play it like this and just kind of like look at it like it's a laptop. Alternatively, of course, what you can do is you can connect it to the side of the device just like this and use it as a portable device like that, like a traditional handheld. And on top of that, it also comes with this little skeleton, which I would like to think of it as a controller skeleton, where you take the Joy-Cons, you stick them in the sides like this, and you have what I like to look at as the dog face controller. I'm not the first person to call it that, but yeah, that's basically what it is. It looks like a mutant dog face, and you can use it like a traditional game controller, which you can either use when it's up in the kickstand, as I showed you before, or when it's docked. On top of that, it also comes with an HDMI cable, which I'm not using because it's only 2 feet long, which is like 2/3 of a meter. It was too short for my setup. I'm sure the quality of the cable is fine, it's just too short. And on top of that, the biggest flaw with all of the devices that it comes with was this. This is the power supply. Now the power supply on the end that connects to the device is USB-C, which is nice because USB-C is becoming more popular, it'll become more universal, and that'll be very convenient when you want to use this thing as a portable or when you want to use it in the dock. It'll be nice to have options so you don't necessarily always have to get the proprietary Nintendo one. I noticed though, 2 issues. First, you guys, if you saw the stream when I did it, I got kind of pissed about this in the stream. I appreciate Nintendo for bringing back cartridges in a sense. If you're unaware, Nintendo, like the games are like little SD cards, which are not cartridges, but it's nice. It's like thinking of them as cartridges, but they're just like basically little SD cards. While I appreciate that aspect of nostalgia, I didn't need them to also bring back the old school Super Nintendo style power supply. The power brick going straight into the outlet was unnecessary. This really should have been more like a laptop style where the power supply is in the middle, and then there's like a a smaller cable that hangs off that goes into the outlet. This was dumb. This is the dock. This is the thing that actually makes it a home console. Now on the front, of course, it says Nintendo Switch and it uses its logo. And of course, you would take it and just sit it into the holder there, like you see in that picture that the person's doing there. You sit it in there, and then it's there's a USB Type-C port in there which it can use to communicate with the dock. I'm going to take the Switch out real quick just to show you the back of this. On the back, there's a little plastic door. There's not much hardware in there. It's really just a little bit of electronics and mostly a thing to hold it in. But when you go to the back, you'll see there's 3 ports. One is the AC port, which of course is this. It's a USB Type-C port intended for power. Then the middle one is a USB 3.0 port, which is interesting because it seems to be something they have no specific intention for. It's more like for future-proofing, maybe adding additional like external hard drive devices, or who knows what kind of like add-ons they might think of. Maybe I'm pulling this out of my ass, but maybe like some sort of like external CD drive for Wii U compatibility or something ludicrous like that. I don't know. Point is, it's there in case they need it. And then the bottom one is an HDMI port. The idea is you take the cables and you feed them all together, and then they can kind of fit through this port, or if you close it, they can fit through up here. On top of that, on this side, you have 2 additional USB ports, but these are USB 2.0. That's why it's strange there's a 3.0 port in there. I think that's why I say it's for future-proofing. So this is for things like charging controllers, or alternatively, you can get something like this. This is a USB to broadband adapter, which I don't know how many people are aware of this. The console natively has Wi-Fi capabilities. That makes sense. But if you go into the settings on the console and you connect it to something like this, you can actually use broadband, like a local Ethernet cable, to actually get your internet access. It just takes mild configuration. Now, this is a USB 2.0 one from the Wii. This thing is 11 years old. So fitting it into the USB 2.0 port makes perfect sense. Obviously, if you got a USB 3.0 version of this and use the 3.0 port, I imagine you would have much better speeds. But hey, that's what I've got, so I'm just saying it works. That's the point. But that's an additional thing. This does not come with the console. Speaking of something that doesn't come with the console, you also have this. This is the Pro Controller. This is really for people like me who just wanted a traditional home console and didn't really care too much about the portability. I found playing with this to be substantially more enjoyable than playing with the dog face controller. Not that the dog face controller is bad or that I dislike it, but if you give me the option, if I can play with either one, I'm definitely going with this. It's a very nice controller. I was actually pleasantly surprised by how good it was. The only actual quirk I have about it is not really its fault, it's more of a cultural thing. If you guys aren't aware, in North America, when you're playing a controller, traditionally you'd see on this side like that 4-button setup that we've been used to for the last few generations. I'm sure you're all kind of used to the idea that the bottom button is your action or confirm button, whereas the side button here is usually the back or retreat or whatever, especially when you're in things like menus. In Japan, for years, it's been like the other way around. Like since the PS1, the action button has always been the bottom, or sorry, the side one, and the cancel button has been the one on the bottom. With Nintendo, they decided that will just be the way it is. So like the Wii U, for example, did this, and the Switch does this. So it's not a deal breaker, it's just one of those things you have to get a little used to when you're playing it. I can't tell you how many times I was trying to configure stuff in the menu or typing in passwords and all that kind of shit, and I would fuck it up and accidentally go back when I meant to confirm, etc., etc. But that's not actually physically something wrong with the controller. It even says which one is the action button. The A is in the right, the letter is on the right button. It just physically feels like the wrong space. So now that we've talked about those aspects, I want to talk to you kind of more about the portability versus the actual home console aspect of it. Now, here's the thing with the portability. You have to understand, I am not the one intended for portability. I'm not the target demographic. I've never really cared much for portability. Even, like, I did a little bit more when I was a kid, but I'm 30 now. Like, I never really care about playing stuff portably. And when I'm in situations where I need some sort of quick entertainment, again, I have a phone. Even when I'm on like a plane or whatever, like I got work to do, I just never really need something like that. But that said, I still went ahead and tested all these type of things. The Switch suffers two big flaws when it comes to portability. Unfortunately, they're pretty big because they're kind of the same ones that killed off a lot of portable devices, which was poor battery life, and which I found that you could get maybe like 3 hours out of this thing, depending on the game you're playing. And the other one is size. Now, portability, all right, so the battery issue, I was immediately, when I was playing this thing, I was immediately reminded of the Game Gear. Because that's like the two things that really hurt the Game Gear, was that it was too big to be portable. You couldn't put it in your pocket. And you also, it took 6 AA batteries, which ran out really quickly. Now, granted, this is better because it doesn't require batteries you have to purchase. It can be charged. So that is an advantage, but it still runs out rather quickly. So when you need to plug it in to an outlet wherever you are, it's not really that portable anymore. Now, you can use something like this. This is an external battery device that you would use for like something like your cell phone. However, I noticed, and I'm not the only person that did this, my buddy Shane, Re-Res TV, tested this out too. He had a bigger one, and he said he could only get like 8% recharge out of one of these things, which is kind of insane. And I gotta say, like, I noticed that too. When I plugged it in, not with this power supply, the official one, I plugged it in with the Google Pixel power supply, and it took forever to charge. It was not friendly to that. So charging is an issue. And then the size. You look at this thing, I'm going to compare it to something you might know. This is the Wii U tablet. Now, it's smaller than the Wii U tablet, which is impressive because this is the entirety of the console, where this is not. But yeah, the size, you can't really fit this in your pocket. It's too big. Now, you can take off the Joy-Cons and then fit this in one pocket and maybe the Joy-Cons in the other, but that really takes up a lot of real estate, especially when you likely have a wallet, keys, probably a phone because it's 2017. Just having this isn't necessarily going to be compatible with most people. So odds are, if you're bringing it portably, you're probably going to want a case. They didn't include a screen protector. You know, like when you have, again, I keep coming up with the phone because that's the thing I think we're all the most familiar with at this point. When you have a phone, the phone is just a naked screen, you know, and then you have to get like this, like I have a case on mine. You can't really put a case on this. They sell them, but if you do that, you can't really fit it into the dock. So you have to get one of those like plastic screens that are a pain in the ass to put on the screen. They do sell those, and I'll probably get one of those, but that didn't come by default. So naturally, on a touchscreen, that's kind of stupid because you subject it to a lot of potential damage. So just shoving this in a bag somewhere when you want to go portable is not the best idea either. So as a portable, it's capable, but it definitely has flaws. But I don't know how much better you can get, so I don't know. But those are the issues I noticed. I don't know what you could really do short of making a whole new version of this thing where you can actually improve things like battery life or anything like that. Because unlike the Wii U, where they allowed you to take out the old battery and replace it with a bigger battery, there is no way to do that on the Switch. Nintendo didn't build that in mind. So you can't really fix the battery life, and the size is not really anything you can fix either. So now let's focus on it as a home console. Okay. Now as a home console, I like it. You know, it's once I plug it into the dock and I have the game in there, it's, you know, it's set up on the television, and I'm just playing with this. It's good to go, man. I have no issues with anything like that. As a home console, it was great. But it does have quirks about it that I want to address. So once you actually have the console on, you're good to go for the most part. There's some settings to configure, things like internet and stuff. Currently, the dashboard is very bare bones. Believe it or not, you actually can't turn it off within the console settings either. The only option there is to put it into sleep mode, even though you see that power indicator. It obviously is lacking in software. The console only launched with 5 physical games. I have 3 of them. I have Super Bomberman R, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and 1-2 Switch. The other 2 are Just Dance 2017 and Skylanders game. I didn't bother with either of those. I didn't care. The only reason it's getting a pass right now on content is just because of Breath of the Wild, because everyone wanted to play this. So I really hope Nintendo uses that to their advantage and then starts moving along, because there's really nothing else to do with it. There is the eShop, but the eShop is also lacking in a lot of content, and personally I don't ever download digital stuff anyway. If you want access to additional software that we don't have, you can actually link to the Japanese eShop and download a bunch of games that we don't currently have. I'll put a link in the description to a video on how to show you that. So I'm hoping that they at least think about multimedia function, things like YouTube, Netflix and stuff. That'll all be perfect on here whenever that happens. Now, I should have mentioned this earlier. Behind the kickstand, which, again, the kickstand was one of the problems I was going to bring up, but you saw it firsthand. Problem with the kickstand, of course, since it's only on one side, is you press the power button and it just kind of like flips over like this. So it really should have had two kickstands to prevent that. Now, but underneath the kickstand that is there, you have a micro SD card slot, which is actually really important because the console only has 32 gigabytes of internal storage, which is obviously not very good, and only about 26 of it is accessible. It's worth noting that the Switch does not install game data from the cartridge to the console, unlike, say, the Xbox One or the PS4, where they install their entirety of their games onto the consoles before use. The Switch actually reads directly off of it, which is great. So the only data you'll actually have to put onto the console is either from the eShop downloads, patches, or game saves. In Japan, they already released a game that's too big to be stored on internal storage, so the game actually requires that you have an SD card when you try to download it. Although I don't remember what game that is offhand. Now, okay, so here's an interesting flaw with the storage system that is mind-blowingly stupid, and this has to be fixed. This has to be fixed. It is terrible. So those of you who watched the live stream when I unboxed this thing will know the first thing I did when I tried actually playing it was I put in Super Bomberman. Now, it was connected to my Wi-Fi, so it detected an update. It downloaded the update. I was playing it for a bit. Yippee. Then I stopped. Now, the update actually downloaded to the internal storage, which makes sense because there was no SD card in there. Then during the stream, I put in the SD card, formatted it, good to go. Then I put in Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild had an update, so it downloaded. Afterwards, I noticed that it installed the update of Breath of the Wild to the SD card. That makes sense because the SD card is 117 gigabytes available out of a 128 gigabyte card. And it just made sense to put it on the biggest possible source. So I was like, okay, whatever. What I want to do is I want to move all the Super Bomberman data to the SD card because I don't want to fill up the internal memory. I would love to use the SD card. That's what it's there for. So you would think, okay, I'll just go to data management and I'll just copy files over. You can do that on the Xbox One. You can do that on the Xbox 360, PS4. You can do it on the Nintendo Wii U. The Switch doesn't allow it. The Switch doesn't allow you to move data from one storage device to the other. Now, in this case, not that big of a deal. All you have to do is delete the update data for Super Bomberman and then go ahead and put the game in, it'll re-download it, and this time it'll send it to the place you want to go. That's all fine and good. The problem though, and I just read about this today because I hadn't even thought about it, unfortunately, this also affects save data. So I'm going to put it out there right now. If you have a Switch that you didn't get a micro SD card for, at this point in time, if you play Breath of the Wild, you get the update data and you put like, I don't know, 20 hours in or whatever, then you get, you know, like the SD card and you're like, all right, I want to move everything over there. You can't. Not only can you not move your patch, you can't move your fucking saved game either. So the only way to get it back would be to do like, to basically replay the entire game. There is currently no way to copy the save data, your gameplay saves. You can't put them in the cloud. You can't do anything. It's completely stuck on whatever the storage system is. So if it's the internal storage, you're truly fucked. But from what I can tell, even if you put it on the SD card and you put it into another Switch, it doesn't work because it's specific for your Switch. That's a really stupid design flaw that Nintendo really needs to fix. That's bad. So now, moving on, let's talk about another thing that really shouldn't be difficult, but it is, turning it off. So here's the thing. The only way currently to turn it off is there's a power button on the console itself. Now when you're playing it in handheld mode, that's not that big of a deal. You just hold it down and a little menu will pop up and it'll say, do you want to turn it off, do you want to put it in sleep mode, or do you want to restart it? Okay, fine. I completely turn it off. And then I'm like, all right, now I want to go sit it in the dock. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put it in there and I'm going to walk away. Nope, it'll just return back on and send it to my television, even though I don't want it on. So you then have to turn it off, but you can't do that with a controller. So at that point I then have to go back onto the console while it's in the dock and like awkwardly hold down this button until that same menu prompt is brought up on the screen, where I then tell it to turn itself off. One thing that I dislike about it intensely, and that's kind of the fault of the dock, is that this artwork, I only notice this now, is really misleading. You look at it and you think, you don't really notice the fact that the person holding or putting their hand on the Switch is actually doing it wrong. Like, the whole idea is that you don't take it out unless you have the Joy-Cons, right? But that person is grabbing it by the screen, although I think you saw me do that earlier, but that was just to get it out. It's not really the way you're supposed to do it. And so when I looked at this artwork, my assumption was that this person was like in the middle of putting it back, even though if you look closely enough, you can see that it can't go any further. Mentally, I just assumed this thing could fit all the way in. The way it is right now, part of the screen is always exposed, which is kind of dumb because depending on your lighting, you could potentially damage the screen, or you at least you'll get a lot of dust on part of the screen all the time, depending on when you use it, etc., etc. I don't like that. I thought it should have really sit all the way into the dock, but maybe they couldn't do that because of the exposure to the cartridges, or like I don't know exactly what their logic was, but I wish they had figured that one out. Oh, and it also has a headphone jack, but that makes sense. You might be able to use the headphone jack when it's docked. I never thought to test that, but I assume it would work. But yeah, so I basically what I'm telling you is I like this thing. I do. I think there's a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of things it needs some software upgrades to fix. I think it needs more media and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the potential's there. But there's some hardware quirks, and it wouldn't surprise me if we get a more improved dock later. It also wouldn't surprise me if we see it in a completely newer version of the Switch later, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all later.